How long do you think it will be before they are offering private vaccines? And there was a story, maybe even today, that a clinic had had to take down an advert for private vaccines in London. But do you think it's something that they'll start doing fairly soon?
It's an interesting question, and I find myself torn. If the market worked the way it was supposed to work, then you would have a large number of vaccine manufacturers competing with each other to make available vaccines, and they would be available at very little cost from your local pharmacy on the high street, like the way you can go and buy a packet of aspirin or Panadol for about £1. That's the way the market's supposed to work, but it doesn't work like that. The way it's structured, it depends on large amounts of public money to support its R&D and all of that, and then they have their patent on it, which lasts, I think, for about 16 years, when they can charge whatever they like. And the way it's structured, it depends on large amounts of public money to support its R&D, and then they have their patent on it, which lasts, I think, for about 16 years, when they can charge whatever they like. And you've seen how this row has been playing out over the last few weeks about whether the vaccine should be put off patent. Because if they were put off patent, the generic pharmaceutical companies in places like Hungary and India would immediately start producing vast amounts of them at very low cost. And that may be the most efficient way of getting them to everybody. If they were available through the shops at a low price, that would be probably a better proposition. It gets complicated when you look at how the free market isn't really a free market, it's a rigged market. The free market isn't really a free market, it's a rigged market. If you want a real free market, then you're going to drive prices right down and make it accessible to people.
So what this former health minister is revealing to the world is that the pharmaceutical companies are basically ripping off the entire planet by using public funds to subsidize their own research and then turning that research into a private commodity in which they can make billions of dollars of profit. It just doesn't make sense. And it's such an ugly side of capitalism, I'm not surprised that no mainstream media is touching the subject. Another really startling report here from Oxfam says that the pharmaceutical companies in the West have signed these special laws where they can't be held responsible for any side effects that happen from those vaccines. It's absolutely insane when you think about it. Their research is publicly funded, then it's sold for a private profit to private individuals. And then they're not even held responsible if they make a really faulty product, which is killing tons of people all over the world. Again, mainstream media doesn't want you to know this because it really does reveal such an ugly, disgusting side of capitalism, which is really responsible for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of deaths. Right now, if all those patents were gone, then companies all over the world, big and small, could start producing vaccines. And then all the prices would fall, just like this public health director said. With mass competition comes a mass fall in prices. Don't get me wrong, capitalism has amazing effects. We all know capitalism in many ways is so beneficial and so great for the world, but it also has its disgusting psychopathic sides, which is often censored and banned from being broadcast on the mainstream media because who owns the mainstream media? Those very capitalists that own everything else.
Why is nobody talking about long COVID? I think you had mentioned it in one of your previous answers. We perhaps don't need to be too scared about the new variant because, the hospitalizations aren't going up. We can kind of not be too worried about the cases. But long COVID, I guess, is still a worrying consideration, John.
No, and barely a day goes by in my social life when I don't hear about somebody who's got long COVID. It's out there. This is serious. I mean, after the so-called Spanish flu in 1918-19, it was followed by an epidemic of Parkinson's disease. The brain damage side of that influenza seems to have led to a large number of people developing Parkinson's disease. Now, we don't know what's happening with this. The organs that are damaged by the coronavirus are multiple. I mean, it seems to be able to go for your brain, for your kidneys, for your lungs, for your heart. We have to start thinking about that like we thought about TB in the past or chronic kidney disease before we had antibiotics that were able to deal with some of the causes of that. Or it could be on a parallel with diabetes, in a sense, if it affects 1 million people or more. And how you deal with that, if the mental health side of it, it could well put further extreme pressure on our mental health services.